Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod.
And here we are.
I'm so glad to be here. We got so much to talk about.
Me too. And we have a very exciting guest, a woman who I've admired for her work in the field.
As have I.
Yes, Emily Island, who is president of the Autism Society LA.
Yes.
And she's going to tell us about some really exciting support groups and work they've been doing on young adults and adults with autism. What is the future for them? I mean, this is something we keep asking, been a lot of conversation about, but we know we have a long way to go, and they're really working on some concrete ways to improve that situation. So I'm very excited to hear what she's got going on.
Emily is a wealth of information. For any of you who are watching, if you have questions that we're going to have Emily joining us right after in the news segment, you can be writing those in the question box on autism-live.com, or you could be emailing us.
And you've already got a couple of those questions that we had viewers had sent
Yes, in the last couple of days. So hopefully we'll have enough time to get to everything.
It seems like every week we have some powerhouse woman on in the field of autism.
It's pretty amazing.
It really is. I really enjoyed having Coach Elaine last week.
Wonderful.
Elaine Hall.
Absolutely.
And next week we have Lisa Ackerman from TACA. And just there are a lot of women leading the charge on this epidemic and helping our kids in so many ways, and it's just thank God for all of them.
Absolutely true. And we have some amazing stories in the news to cover as well.
You want to talk about that autism suit against Cigna?
Yes, amazing thing has happened. This is really groundbreaking, that a federal court in Philadelphia has granted a class action status to a lawsuit against the insurance company Cigna for denying coverage for ABA therapy.
Okay.
Absolutely amazing, because Cigna was saying that they weren't granting it because it was experimental.
Okay.
And a group of parents got together and said, how can you possibly say that when there is over 5 decades of research about ABA therapy, and there is over 2 decades of ABA therapy being effective in the course of treatment for autism? So how can you say that it's experimental? And they have been granted class action status.
Bravo.
I think we're going to see a lot more of this kind of thing happening. I know when I gave birth to my child, I was not in Cigna, I was in Kaiser.
Yes.
And I have been given paperwork that there's a class action suit against Kaiser as well.
Okay.
So I haven't seen that in the news, but I personally have received paperwork saying would I like to participate in a class action suit against Kaiser. So very interesting, this field that we're in right now.
Yes.
Insurance. Oh, and I'm covering my mic.
Your sweater's covering your mouth, your mic. Okay.
But in any case, I'm a disaster today. I have been all day
insurance,
today.
We heard predictions that a lot of the insurance companies would fight the mandate that they would have to cover ABA.
Yeah, well, good luck to
it's
them
going
now.
to be incumbent upon parents to organize and get together and fight for their rights.
I think the insurance companies are starting to see, though, that we mean business.
Yes, we do.
And we're not going away.
No.
So that's a wonderful thing. And we'll look forward to telling you more as that information comes in. Did you also see, very controversial, that the FDA has approved a trial that is taking cord blood?
Yes.
And they're going to, it's a 6-week study that they're going to inject cord blood that is from the child. The parent has to have saved the cord blood.
Too late for us.
Too late for us. But they're the study says that it's to see if it will cure, that's the word they're using, not our word, cure autism. And the reason why they're curious about it is a very particular study that they did with a child who had cerebral palsy. That they were able to give this child the cord blood, and they saw huge leaps as a result within a 6 weeks period.
Yeah.
And this is not the first time that this has been done, but is the first time that they're going to do it in a very controlled environment. There's a control group. They're going to do this very scientifically, and it is something that their expectation is that they will see within 6 weeks if it is going to have an effect. So we should hear something, instead of being years away, we should hear something fairly soon.
So do we think there's going to be a rush of parents to to save their newborns cord blood?
Well, I think that that's very likely.
Yeah. And is that a simple process? I don't know.
It's expensive.
Okay.
It's
so
very
this
simple,
is not
but it's
necessarily
expensive.
something available to everyone.
Well, and the other repercussion is that although they're saying right now they have no idea, nobody knows what's going to happen, but the first thing is to see whether the child's own cord blood will work, and there's a possibility that a sibling who has the same blood type would also potentially.
What about a donor then, not a sibling?
Well, apparently in European countries they've tried that, but the results have been muddy. That they're saying they're not scientific, so there's still so much more room to talk.
This was right out of a organization or an institute that I'd never heard of. Had you heard of the Sutter Neuroscience Institute in Sacramento?
No, I had never heard of the
I had not either. I'd never heard of any research, like sort of the Mind Institute. We get a lot of research from certain entities, and I had never heard of this particular entity. So
very interesting.
Yeah.
So we'll be reporting to you to let you know what comes of this study.
Okay.
And then you've got another thing there.
Well, this was, I thought, particularly something of interest with when we have Emily to talk about it, and we'll talk about it with her as well, that although there are existing programs, which from my understanding of the parents that I speak to every day that have teenagers and young adults with autism, very few, and very hard to find and access. Although there are existing programs to help adults with autism in the job field, there have been no relevant studies to evaluate the success of such programs. When researchers attempted to conduct a meta-analysis on these programs, they were only able to find 5 studies. They believe that more studies are needed on this topic, and with the rise of autism over the past decade, we need to do more research on how these programs are working, which programs in particular are working, and how we can make them more effective. So that's something that seems to be kind of obvious,
right?
But a lot of times these things are not obvious, and we need to see exactly what services are working for our kids.
And clearly, I mean, it's been demonstrated widely and it talked about in the media widely that our children on the spectrum are going to grow up to be adults on the spectrum, and already this population is underemployed.
Yes.
So clearly an issue.
All right, so I have a question that I wonder if you know and if anybody in our audience knows, because it's something I've been asking, and nobody seems to know what the policy and what sort of reforms, platforms, programs either President Obama or the Republican candidate Mitt Romney, where they stand on autism and what they intend to do about it. Do you have any idea?
I do not know. I do know that when we covered the little boy in Iowa and the Iowa caucuses who went around and asked questions of the Republican candidates, but didn't have the opportunity to talk to Obama, and we had put the link up to when he had talked to Mitt Romney, and the answer was one of those sort of stock answers about more needs to be done.
Yeah, well,
right. But yes, this is a subject that I'm very interested in right now, especially in these last 2 weeks with the
I'm very surprised more has not been written about it. I haven't really seen anything specific as to the candidates' views and what they intend to do. And as you know, I believe we need a summit on this, very similar to what the Clinton Global Initiative has done with climate change and AIDS. If people don't see this as an epidemic and a national problem of gigantic proportions, they've got their head in the sand. I want to know where the candidates stand on it.
Well, I think that we should put in a request, and if need be a petition, to ask to please share your view of what needs to happen, what direction.
Let's try it. Let's contact the White House, and we'll contact the Romney campaign, and we'll see what we can get from them.
And we'll report back to you.
All right, great.
All right.